Welcome back to the quiet corner where whispers become stories and the human pulse is heard above the noise. You are watching Turkish Spotlight Secrets. Under the glare of fame, gestures of affection often feel staged, engineered to make headlines and feed timelines. But every now and then, something tender slips past the choreography, a private act that isn't seeking applause. As the clock surrendered the last seconds of 2025 and Istanbul stepped softly into 2026, such a moment unfolded. It wasn't scandalous or strategic, not a public breakup or a fiery post. It was a box. It was a promise. It was silence with meaning. We are talking about Hazal Kaya and Çağatay Ulusoy, two names tied by a past that fans never quite let go of. Theirs is a history many believe still breathes beneath the surface. While the city celebrated loudly, Hazal followed a plan set gently in motion months before. There were no photographers briefed in advance, no trending hashtag, no ghost-written caption. Only a commissioned piece of art, a note written by her own hand, and a commitment she refused to abandon. Tonight, we cradle that moment as if it were a fragile keepsake. We will step into a living room that rarely belongs to crowds, the home of Çağatay's mother, where gatherings are intimate and talk is unguarded. We will feel a mother's tears, a son's stillness, and the elegance of a woman who chose principle over presence. This is not a tale about a flashy gift. It's a lesson on loving with restraint and respect. But before we open the ribbon on this heart-quiet story, let me ask you, the lifeblood of our community, should ties to a partner's family cease when romance loses its shape? Can you hold space for a mother's heart without walking back into her son's life? If you crave these deeper journeys into the souls behind the screens, make sure you're subscribed to Turkish Spotlight Secrets. If you want to stand closer with us, supporting the digging and the storytelling, the join button is right below. Your support is the ink that keeps our narratives alive. Now, step with me into the warm glow of that New Year's Eve. To feel the gravity of what happened, we need the setting. New Year's at the home of Çağatay's mother isn't a typical party, it's tradition. For Istanbul's inner circles, this night is sacred refuge. There are no sponsor walls, no red carpet poses, no influencers turning clinks of glasses into content. It's tea and wine and crystal, soft laughter, people who know the stories behind each other's eyes. For years, one name was carved into the guest list like a family heirloom, Hazal Kaya. Whatever storms tabloids tried to conjure, whatever storylines fame attempted to write, the friendship between Hazal and the Ulusoy matriarch seemed unshakable. She wasn't just Çağatay's partner in public perception, she was a daughter of the house, a familiar voice in the music of their memories. But as 2025 slipped into 2026, the chair where Hazal once sat remained empty. The gap hummed. And let this be said clearly, that space wasn't created by neglect or indifference. Those who understand Hazal's compass say she'd committed long ago to attend a different gathering on that exact night. For her, a promise isn't flexible, it's anchored. Backing out would have meant turning against her own values. She chose to keep her word, even if it carried the ache of distance. Declining the family's invitation stung, but she refused to betray another commitment to soothe her heart. That devotion to integrity set everything else in motion. If you know how Hazal moves through the world, you know absence doesn't mean disappearance. She isn't the type to toss off a quick apology and vanish into the glitter of the evening. She believes symbols carry weight. So, while jazz breathed softly in the background and the fragrance of roasted chestnuts curled through the room, the doorbell sounded. Conversations paused. Heads turned. A delivery had arrived, but not the glossy, forgettable kind, a package wrapped with such care that the paper itself seemed to speak. It wasn't a florist's default or a gift basket assembled with corporate efficiency. The wrapping was precise, respectful, personal. Less an object and more a message. Those who were there say the air turned reverent as the box was carried in. Even the music seemed to retreat, making space. The matriarch stood to receive it, her presence quietly commanding. Guests looked on, sensing an unexplained shift. As she unfastened the paper, carefully revealing what lay within, the room settled into a hush. What emerged was not jewelry, not a designer trinket, not anything drenched in brand names. It was a work of art. Long before the holiday rush, Hazal had contacted an artist whose name remains concealed and entrusted them with a task, to depict the face her addressee cherished most, her son, Çağatay. The piece wasn't glossy or sterile. It was a hand-drawn portrait, intimate and alive. The artist captured more than the familiar angles adored by countless fans. In the eyes there was a layered quiet, a watchful warmth, a tenderness rarely visible in staged photographs. It was a gaze that only a mother recognizes immediately because she was the first to see it, and perhaps, it was a gaze remembered by a woman who once stood close enough to understand its language. To give a mother a portrait of her child is a gesture of extraordinary emotional wisdom. It says, "I honor what you love most." It moves the giver out of the center and places the light where it belongs, on the bond between a parent and her son. It was reverence, elegantly wrapped. And then, breath. Alongside the portrait came a letter, written in Hazal's own hand. In a world where everything is typed and filtered, she chose ink and paper. The handwriting was described as sure yet gentle, the script of someone who knows what she means and means what she writes. The message was brief and unadorned, but it pierced through the night. "Tease, forgive me for not being with you. I made a promise long ago and must keep it tonight. Please accept this small New Year's gift. May the days ahead bring you health, calm, and joy." One word carries a world, tease. In Turkish culture, that word is a home. It is respect, affection, belonging. It says, whatever the public imagines about romances and endings, the elder's place remains honored. By choosing that word, Hazal stood not at the door but within the circle, kin in spirit. She asked forgiveness when excuses would have been easy, and she offered blessings without fanfare. In doing so, she built a bridge across water stirred by rumor, laid stone by stone with kindness. Witnesses say the room stayed quiet long after the note was read. Tears rushed to the matriarch's eyes as the layers of the gesture revealed themselves. She looked at her son's face sketched by a stranger's hand, then at the pen strokes of the woman who used to sit at her table. She pulled the frame to her chest as if drawing its warmth into her heart. "What a thoughtful soul," she whispered. In that single breath, the gift became more than an object, it became presence. She did not tuck it away or save it for later evaluation. She set it where everyone could see and understand. Hazal's absence was not a void. It was a choice guided by duty, softened by love. Those close to the family say that later, in the privacy of the kitchen light, the matriarch spoke of Hazal with words that deserve engraving: rare, open-hearted, considerate beyond measure. In that home, the circle never closed around her. Maybe the seat next to the samovar was empty, but her place in the room remained. And what of Çağatay? That is the question that tugs at hopeful hearts. Was he there when the paper slipped to the floor? No one will confirm whether he saw the unveiling in real time or arrived in the room a moment later. But those who understand his quiet ways say the impact ran deep. When he learned of the delivery, when he saw his mother's face lift with the kind of gratitude that doesn't seek an audience, he didn't deflect with humor. He didn't give a speech. He asked for a few minutes alone. A confidant insists this didn't surprise him, he knows Hazal's capacity for grace. But watching his mother glow because of a gesture that asked nothing in return, that was another feeling entirely. He sat with it. He let silence say everything. It wasn't distance. It was depth. You know how these embers travel. Warmth like that refuses to stay contained. The story passed from guest to friend, from friend to confidant, until it reached the restless hands of the internet. And then, as always, the audience split. One camp celebrated Hazal as a modern emblem of how to keep human bonds separate from romantic outcomes, proof that endings need not be destructive. The other camp, guided by hope and the memory of old chemistry, took the portrait as a sign. To them, the thread between Hazal and Çağatay hasn't snapped, it is simply quieter. A simple phrase rode the surge of comments: some connections don't break, they pause. Through it all, Hazal stayed silent. No story post showing the wrapped box. No conveniently timed interview dropping hints. Her intention, friends insist, was a New Year's greeting framed by gratitude and respect, nothing more. It is precisely that restraint which transformed a simple gift into something pure, free of expectation. On the wall of a mother's home hangs more than art. It is a reminder that love can step back without vanishing, that you can honor the people you once walked beside without pulling them off their current path. Does this mean a reunion is on the horizon? No one can claim that truthfully, not even those at the center. What we can say is this. On a cold night in a city famous for spectacle, quiet one. A mother felt seen. A woman kept her word and still found a way to be present. And somewhere close by, a man who has learned to live inside the noise felt the weight of a gesture that asked for nothing. If this story touched you, let us know in the comments. Tell us about the most meaningful gift you've ever given or received, not in price, but in feeling. Your stories deepen this space. Tap subscribe on Turkish Spotlight Secrets, and if you want to strengthen the work that brings you moments like this, consider pressing join. Your support keeps the lights warm and the stories true. Because in the end, what endures is not the size of a gesture but the soul inside it. A neatly tied ribbon, the curve of a familiar script, the decision to honor a promise even when the heart aches in another direction, these are the choices that define character. And that is why, long after the music faded and the city fell asleep, the little frame on the mantel still glowed as if lit from within. There's an old truth our community knows well: the world may chase volume, but intimacy lives in the quieter rooms. Perhaps that is why this moment found its way to you tonight, across screens and time zones, carrying the warmth of a home where people still greet one another not with headlines but with tenderness. If you wish to walk further with us through stories like this, stay close to Turkish Spotlight Secrets. We'll keep listening for the quiet things. New year, new days, same promise, to honor the hearts behind the names. May you keep your word, and may your gifts, however small, carry the weight of love.